My girlfriend was a very superficial girl. She was going to a beauty school to become a hair and makeup artist. I was going to school to become an engineer. I didn't think any less of her for what her career choice was. She was lovely and charming like Snow White and cared about the people she encountered. At least that was what she let me see of her. I took her to a family reunion after we dated for a year, and my mom got some one-on-one time with her in the kitchen. She reported back to me telling me to dump this girl as fast as possible. I was shocked by the impression she got and thought my mom was crazy when she told me my girlfriend was extremely rude, selfish and inconsiderate. I just didn't see what she saw. So I couldn't bring myself to break up with her. She kept surprising me at my dorm with food, movie rentals or games to play. She also looked forward to any chance I got to take her out clubbing. Usually I was busy dedicating myself to my studies. I knew my college education would require sheer determination, strength and focus. Graduation means I wasn't distracted by a woman or, God forbid, getting one pregnant. I knew my girlfriend didn't want to conceive, but she swore she could time her cycle. So there were a few times she persuaded me not to wear protection. One night, my girlfriend tried really hard to convince me to take her out to a venue that had live music and cheap drinks. I told her I couldn't and maintained my resolve. She got pretty upset with me and I saw her face fade from smiling and adorable to a resentful frown with piercing eye contact. She left without another word, but it made me mad because she strutted out with her angry supermodel walk. It seemed obvious she planned to go without me, which made it impossible for me to focus on studying. I drove to the venue 30 minutes later and spotted her on the dance floor with another man surrounded by sweaty people. I watched her and kept my distance while I had a drink. I was curious to see the side of her that my mom warned me about. I didn't believe she'd be so low to cheat on me. She valued me as her man and admired my mind. I thought she wanted a secure and happy future with me. What I saw proved the opposite. She was acting like the most gorgeous and newly single woman in the place. It was only a short time before she let the man she was dancing with lead her back to the bar where they did one more shot before leaving together. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I followed his car while he drove poorly and failed to notice my tailing him. I parked just about 200 feet behind them. So I saw them go into his apartment. I knocked on the door 20 minutes later after deciding it was what I wanted to do. No one answered. Even though I know they heard me. Eventually he answered the door. And when my girlfriend saw me, she tried to look happy and calm. She said this wasn't what I thought it was, that he was actually her gay stepbrother, and they hung out. Sometimes he looked at her like she was crazy. She shoved past him to leave with me and closed the door in his face. We started walking away, but AP didn't want to play along. He felt used and embarrassed. He opened the door again to shout that he was sorry for sleeping with my girlfriend. And she told him she was single. I pulled away from her and she just kept saying that it wasn't true. I told her that even if she didn't sleep with him, I knew he wasn't her gay stepbrother. And I saw the way she danced with him at the club. That was enough for me to believe what my mom said about her. She said I was being unfair because she claimed to be innocent, but I refused to be made a fool for trusting her after this weird night. In my mom's warning, I left her there right by AP's house. She posted dramatic things about me on Facebook, that I left her in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night, and that I accused her of cheating when she wasn't that kind of person. I felt a little helpless about all the bashing, but I ultimately didn't care because I knew who I was and what I wanted to become. I went back to my studies and forgot all about my ex-girlfriend. To my surprise, just 4 months later, she posted on Facebook with the happy news that she was expecting. 1 hour later, she was publicly freaking out because AP dumped her and accused her of cheating. Apparently AP couldn't have children. So he knew he was not the father, even though my ex tried to claim he was. It was a huge mess. And I'm glad I got out of the whole situation when I did. My mom was relieved too. Years later, I'm working as an engineer and my ex is a single mother of 2 that never obtained her cosmetology degree. I am sorry. Your girlfriend proved herself to be a selfish and manipulative woman. You dodged a bullet. Thanks to your mother's warning and girlfriend's telling behavior. It worked out really well to follow her that night. And it was the only time you had to because you were too smart to be playing these games. She was extremely immature and it worries me to think about all the men she'll probably trick into loving her. Unless through some miracle, she learns her lesson and becomes a trustworthy woman. Now she has her kids to consider and put above her own desires. Sometimes it takes a shocking life mistake like this to realize the world doesn't bend to your wishes and you'll get yourself into a bad place if you think selfishly or take advantage of others. Thank you for sharing your story. Now let's get into our second story for today. I 41 didn't realize that my wife, 35, was talking to several other men behind my back. The man she talked to the longest paid her for pictures and videos. When we were struggling financially, we had 3 kids, one of them nearly an adult. And we were married for 10 years after she felt like she could get away with talking to AP behind my back. She started making up stories for places she had to go to. One night, she told me she was going to get her hair done and she did. But it took a long time. Another time this could have happened many times while I was at work and the kids were at school. She spent the day with him. He was like her sugar daddy. I didn't know she was sneaking out or doing anything behind my back until I got a call from a married woman. We were both friends with for about 7 years. She was crying and said she just found out her husband was cheating on her. I was shocked to hear this and told her I was so sorry. I was shocked because when I spent time with her husband, he told me how much he loved his wife. I recalled one time we were alone together and he spoke highly of his wife and then asked me how my wife felt. But then he corrected himself to how I felt about my wife. Right after this memory, she told me my wife was the one sleeping with him. I instantly understood why she was calling me. I had a vision of my heart plopping onto a platter and a fork stabbing it. Then a knife cutting into it. I asked her how she knew and she said she was holding her husband's phone at that very moment. He forgot it. When he said he was going to meet some friends. She tells me she was looking at their messages right now and he lied. He was going to meet my wife at a book club. Hearing her mention the book club made it all too read. That was definitely my wife's thing. She would go every week, but she never invited me to go. I wasn't much of a reader. AP's wife sent me pictures of what was going on while I drove to the book club. These messages mentioned times they had sex, things they wanted to do, and risked pictures. They were all about to get a rude awakening. I busted down the door and found 8 women all intently and dreamily listening to AP, the only man in the room, reading a romance novel out loud. My wife was wrapped around his arm with her head on his shoulder. The room gasped and looked at me. When I walked in, my wife jumped straight to standing and AP looked like his worst fears were realized. I looked him dead in the eye and said his wife knew what he was doing. He could only say no, but I said yes and added that she sent me the messages between him and you. I pointed to my wife. Then AP ran out the door. My wife covered her mouth and all the other women stared with gaping mouths as this unfolded. I told her she made a vow to me 10 years ago and gave birth to my children. Only for our marriage to end like this. My voice cracked and tears started flowing. I told her she ruined 2 marriages and I never wanted her to come back into my home again. She very quietly said that this didn't have to happen because she was sorry and learned her lesson. I told her I didn't give a crap if she learned her lesson, that would only benefit her future. But now I had to pick up the pieces of my own life, the life that she gave up for another man. Then I left. One of the women chased me down and handed me a little piece of paper with her phone number on it. All the other women started whispering and awkwardly leaving, itching to spread the word around town about the book club breakup. As soon as I got home, I realized this building didn't feel like home anymore. just a grave of the life I was living. So I packed up the kids and everything I could over the next few days and with my brother's help, moved into my parents' house 3 hours away. This was what I needed to do while I divorced my wife and got financially situated to the point where I could buy a new home. Meanwhile, AP was divorced and moved in with my ex. They probably thought everything was going to be okay for them until they were both ordered to pay child support. But that's not all. AP found out just a few weeks later that he wasn't my wife's only lover. And after some thought, she decided she could do better than him. She moved out, leaving him broke and the sole person living in her old marital home. She moved in with some dangerously rich man. She was treated pretty well there at first and they actually decided to have a baby together. However, while the paint was drying in the nursery, my wife's new husband cheated on her. Then he wanted the new woman to be his wife and have his babies. So he kicked out my ex, providing her the money for an abortion. I don't know if any of you guys believe in karma, but I am certain that's what happened here. My wife wanted the money and didn't give a crap about anyone else. So that's literally what she got: temporary riches from someone that didn't give a crap about her. I've since bought a new place and remarried. I thought I should share this story to inspire people, particularly men who were betrayed by a woman that they trusted as much as it hurts. We are strong enough to get through it. Men are meant to take the hardest crap dealt in the world. We don't even need much to keep on going. But if a woman fails, you just get another one. I know that sounds heartless, but I was able to do just that very thing. No matter what you're faced with, always be communicative and caring while knowing your own boundaries and what you deserve. That's how you just keep surviving and functioning. I am glad to hear that justice was served to your cheating wife. There may not be such a thing as two souls destined for each other. But as mature adults, we each have the chance and responsibility to wisely choose the partner we want to commit to and love, no matter what the person that matches us as closely as possible, among other factors. And when it seems to be getting boring or difficult, you fight to rekindle the love and commitment that you found in each other. If there are things to talk about them. That's how you solve things that are causing problems, no matter how painful, humiliating or uncertain it is. And if there aren't any vow-breaking problems and there's still love in the relationship, then there's no reason to betray them. Being bored under stress or tempted by another person certainly is not enough to put your loved one through a tragic life event. They must overcome. I'm glad to hear you've overcome this extremely difficult time in your life. Remember, you are worthy of all the love and happiness you find. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe. If you haven't already,